First of all, thank you. Great audience. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Let me just tell you a little bit about me. I'm the county executive of Allegheny County, the second largest county in the state, and I've had the pleasure of governing for the last 6+ years, and we have a great turnaround story that we're pretty proud of in Western Pennsylvania. But I also spent 8 years on Pittsburgh City Council and 4 years as county controller before I was the county executive. And I got to see a lot of government programs. Some good, some not so good. But the one program that I have seen that works well is the early childhood. Early childhood is probably the best investment we can possibly make. And as governor, I made it very clear in my policy papers to do a few things. One, continuing the great cooperation in the public-private partnership with this commission. But even with the tough budget that the next governor is going to be faced, and I'm willing to evaluate every program in every department, and what works we'll fund, and what doesn't work we won't fund. But there's 2 areas that I will defend and I will fight for. That is the full funding as the costing out study, continue that as we go forward, and making sure we double the amount of kids that are in early childhood. One thing I've learned early on in politics and in governance is that every dollar we invest in the front end is probably worth tenfold on the back end. I'd much rather take tax dollars and use them in the front end of the system with early childhood and give these kids a chance to succeed, as opposed to building jails and worrying about them in the criminal justice system when they're 13, 14, and 15 years old. All of the reports show it works, and as governor, I believe with the public-private partnerships that exist here today, with putting more money into early childhood, we'll actually save taxpayers money long-term by relieving the pressure on our criminal justice system, and we'll be giving the kids a chance at life, because the earlier we get them, the better opportunity they'll have, and the better opportunity they'll be a productive citizen moving forward.
And thank you for what you are doing for what I think is the future of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, for our children. The reason I'm running for governor is because I want to see our children grow. I want to see them have the work skills and the education skills to have good jobs and to stay here in Pennsylvania. I have a perspective that's a little bit different than everybody else. I was a teacher. I was in the classroom. I taught 9th grade, not very far from here. And I knew in 9th grade those kids who were going to make it and those kids who were going to fail. And many of those who failed did not have the foundation when they even went into school. Back in the mid-90s, when Allegheny County started coming to Harrisburg looking for resources, I lobbied on behalf of the county in front of the Ridge administration to get us and to get them early childhood money, because I understood what it meant. In my business, we believe in prevention in crime, and this is prevention. I'd rather spend the money now than spend the money later, just as Dan said about spending it on prisons. We need to bring accountability to our schools and to our teachers. Every child, regardless of their zip code, deserves a quality education. And that starts with early childhood. It starts with a foundation of educational desire and educational success. As I said, I've been a longtime advocate of this. We are going to work with you as governor. We are going to find the money, and we are going to spend our efforts on giving our children, our young children, our pre-K children, the foundation that they so desperately need to lead full and productive lives in the future. Thank you. If I had the witness on the stand when we always tell them answer the question and only the question, I would answer yes. Of course we're going to continue that. First off, the problem that I see in government is we have silos that build up. And this department broke down the silo between the Department of Education and the Department of Welfare. It's absolutely necessary to coordinate the money that we're putting in to early childhood education. And I believe by doing that, we can maximize the money that we're putting in there, where they aren't competing with each other and doing things on their own. They're working together. Because we have to keep in mind, there is only one target here. There is only one goal, and that is to educate these children to, again, as I said earlier, make a better workforce down the road when those children are the ones that are sitting in the audience and sitting here and making the decisions for generations to come after that. So I believe that right now, I believe we're at 300,000 kids that we're addressing. We need to address more than that. And one of the ways we do that is we take the efficiencies of working together through this department, funding it, and funding the Department of Education and Welfare to focus on this in a prevention mode so that we can establish a much better educated workforce, much better educated children, and give them opportunities. We have to look at this as a long-term investment, because I know when what we're doing now, 15, 20, 25 years down the road, if we grow it, continues to work, what we're spending in law enforcement, what we're spending in corrections, we'll start reducing. What we're seeing now with the cost of corrections is as a result of not doing this. We've got to bring down that cost of correction by doing prevention now. That's how we're going to do it through this program.
Thank you. As you can see, we're all united, and our answer is yes. But we all come at it probably from our different experiences. And being an executive of the second largest county and having the second largest Department of Human Service, I do get to see firsthand how important this is for my county and how important it is for the state, if I'm fortunate enough to be governor. Of course, I support the joint offices in making sure, as you heard, tearing down those silos. They continue to work together, and they coordinate their efforts. But it's more than just early childhood. What we really need to do is make sure we build off of and support that continuum of care and continuum of services that's out there. It's a broad scope of what we need to do. From the nurse-family partnerships, from the Keystone Babies program, to the pre-K count, then making sure that we have quality child care and encouraging the child care centers to go into the Keystone Star program. We want to make sure that we have that continuum of care, because some of the children in this state are coming out of environments that you and I couldn't even imagine when we were kids, and that this is the chance at life for them. This continuum of care, getting them as early as possible, providing them with a shot at life that they should be getting, but for no fault of their own, they're not. And this is helping us as a society give them a shot, because you heard from all of us up here the benefit of it. If you can save on the correction side budget and plow it into the front end and produce productive citizens, that's great. But the most important thing is we're actually going to save these kids' lives. We're going to save them. They're going to have a shot. And that continuum of care is important, because you can't just do pre-K and that's it. It's getting them as early as you can, getting them through the system until they get to school. If we do that, we're going to serve them well. We're going to serve the taxpayers well. Thank you.
If I were in court, we'd object to that as a compound question, very hard to answer. Let me put it to you this way. The short answer to the first part of the question is yes. We're going to be looking at this budget. Any one of us that gets elected is going to be looking at this budget, and we're going to say, where do we move money? Where do we save money, but where do we move money to make it the most effective in the best interest of Pennsylvania? And to me, one of the best interests of Pennsylvania is to make sure that our kids have a good quality early childhood education. The long-term return on that investment is tremendous. And it comes back to you very quickly just in the cost of special ed, the reduction in the placement rate. I believe it goes from 18 to 2.9% if you invest early on. Obviously, that may not affect us in the first couple budgets, but it's going to affect us in the budgets forward. I've been dealing with this since I was chairman of the Commission on Crime and Delinquency and got involved with Governor Ridge's partnership for Safe Children, along with First Lady Michelle Ridge. And I believe that the Nurse Family Partnerships was actually part of the blueprints that came out of that program. We invested then, we will continue to invest, because that's exactly what we have to do. Right now, we're investing to the point of affecting maybe 200,000 kids. But unfortunately, there are too many children that are still without access who are at risk. That number could and should at least double. So we will increase the funding. I can't tell you where it's going to go. None of us can tell you right now where we're going to get it from. But I can tell you that's one of the #1 priorities, is to invest in our kids in my administration. Thank you.
Well, a lot of us talk about reforming government and wringing out savings. I just finished 6 years of being the elected executive and doing that. When I took over Allegheny County several years ago, we had a $31 million deficit with $17 million in the bank. That was my first day in the office. I was able to sort of reach back and tap into my training as a certified public accountant and an auditor, and we start reforming government. I consolidated 10 elected offices into 4. I consolidated 5 911 centers into 1. Collectively, we saved $6 million a year. We started to rethink the way we govern. Everything was on the table. What worked, as I said earlier, got funded. What didn't work didn't get funded. And we continue to start sharing services with the city and with other municipalities. And we took those efficiencies to get through 6 years. And I'm proud to say that it's 9 years in a row now that Allegheny County has not raised property taxes. 9 years in a row. We're coming up on a decade. So I've been through it. I've dealt with some fiscal issues, and we did it in a fiscally responsible way, in a prudent way, and I'll do the same thing as governor. One of the few opportunities for the state going into a tough situation is the Marcellus Shale and having a reasonable severance tax to help fund DEP, to help fund an impact fund for our municipalities, to help fund a growing green fund, to relieve some pressure on some of those departments. But as we do the efficiencies and we look for changing the way we govern, I think when you evaluate everything, I made it very clear in my policy papers, and I would encourage you to read my policy papers, especially pre-K through 12. There's 2 areas that I'm going to stick to and be very tough on. That's continuing the costing out study and doubling what we're doing in early childhood, because I'm convinced those 2 things will save us money long term. That's going to be my strategy. I've done it for 6 years running the second largest county. I believe I'm prepared to do it as governor. Thank you.